the 6th of June 1944, the great secret is divulged. The 4th of June 1940. The evacuation of the BEF and Allied troops from Dunkirk was completed. 4 years later, almost to the hour, we go back to the same Normandy coast, which saw the closing chapter of the Battle of France. The Allied invasion of Europe from the west is launched. D-Day, the Second Front, and the Second Battle of France. Against the background of these Pathe Gazette pictures of that tragic but glorious exit, we announce the fact that never in the history of newsreels have such vast plans been made for the coverage of the last great act of liberation. To bring to the screen from the first day of our assault on the western seaboard of Europe, the history of Allied invasion. 4 years ago, Europe was Hitler's. The lights of freedom went out. Now the world of free men strikes in all its assembled might at the weakening chains of bondage. Here are the first pictures of the opening of the Second Front. Pictures which security demands should be meager at this stage, yet thrilling because they carry the first flush of excitement as the mammoth task gets underway. Over the French coast go our bombers as invasion hour dawns, to blast enemy lines of communication. From the coast of Britain, the floodgates are opening to release the tide of Allied soldiers. The great curtain of secrecy is still drawn as invasion troops embark, and our Prime Minister makes a last-minute visit to the assembled armada. The first of a series of landings in force is how Mr. Churchill describes the operation. Author of the Victory V sign, he watches over the great preparations and sees the start of the master plan. 4,000 ships and thousands of smaller vessels are involved in the enterprise, and the British, Canadian and American troops employed, sustained by 11,000 first-line aircraft. The great Allied cooperative effort which sets forth to seal the fate of Germany. Let it now be said that the Royal and Merchant Navies are performing their colossal task of carrying, maintaining and assisting the ground forces with indescribable efficiency and success. While all this is going on, there goes out to Europe by radio the warnings issued by Supreme Headquarters. The alert is sounded not only in France, but in Norway, Belgium and Holland. The underground movements are given instructions, and to the people of France, there comes the voice of the Supreme Commander, General Eisenhower.
This landing is but the opening phase of the campaign in Western Europe. Great battles lie ahead. I call upon all who love freedom to stand with us now. Keep your faith staunch. Our arms are resolute. Together we shall achieve victory.
Pictures of paratroops are no new things to us. We have followed through many of their training films and mass displays. But here you see men marching to go aloft with the sure knowledge that when next they set foot on land, it will be on French soil. The first men to move in on the Normandy coastline near the town of Caen. That fact is still unknown to them as General Brereton waves the C-47s into the air, the first of the invaders. Two of the Channel Islands, themselves well in the invasion area, appear below, Guernsey and Alderney. Out of the night sky there come the troop carriers and gliders, while the great armada of ships bears down on the Cherbourg Peninsula and the many places nearby. While civilian Britain sleeps, history's greatest story is being written. Between midnight and breakfast, the D-Day plan is launched. And when the news breaks, the people at home rush to buy it. Eagerly they absorb every line of the rationed information as it comes to hand. The news is good, far better than they dared to hope. Bridgeheads are won, we penetrate inland, airstrips are under construction, and best of all, casualties amazingly light. On that high crest of hope and optimism we end, at the same time readying for the fuller news pictures which we will present in our next editions of Pathe Gazette.
Morning. This is sort of continuation video from yesterday evening's video, and also want to correct some things as well. The mannequin I had up yesterday was sort of my interpretation of a Army Commando officer post the actual landings themselves, so not actually hitting the beach, but generally a bit more, say, land, probably at least 2 to 3 weeks after the invasion itself, or say at least 1 week, 1 to 2 weeks after the invasion. So more of an assault setup, more of a sort of long stay in fixed positions kind of thing. I have another mannequin set up today for another special addition to the Normandy Overlord and Battle of Normandy commemorations today, when they've been going for the past several days. Also, it's more of a assault setup, preferably around Sword or Gold Beach, with the Army Commandos. I just wish to put this out. There is many commemorations going on today. At the moment, they've just held a service in Bayeux, at the cemetery there, and in Cathedral. They had an earlier service at Versailles, overlooking Gold Beach, which I will focus on a little bit now. Now, my family itself has a long history with its county regiments such as the Dorsets and the Hampshire Regiment, later the Royal Hampshire. And my father served with the Royal Hampshire Regiment, and it's always become a passion of mine with the history of that regiment. I have a few excerpts here, which I'll just read, which were from Gold Beach, where the 1st Battalion landed, and they suffered very heavy casualties when they landed, because when the first sort of they were part of a 231 brigade when they hit the beach, and all part of 50th Northumbrian Division. Some elements of the Hampshires hit the wrong part of the beach. They landed further up than they were supposed to, and basically unloaded straight into a crossfire of machine guns and a anti-tank casemate. I think it was WN-37. I think was the correct casemate itself, which had a Polish 75mm gun in it, which was firing along the beach, basically knocking out everything in sight, from brain carriers to tanks to armoured assault vehicles such as the AVREs and etc. They had a hell of a time getting inland, reaching Aramash, the outskirts of Aramash, on the first day, and then properly liberating it on the 7th, and then obviously subsequently with the rest of 50th Division liberating Bayeux on the 7th as well, D+1. Now, one of the extracts I wish to read you is from Trooper Joe Minogue of the Westminster Dragoons, part of 50th Division and part of 8th Armoured Brigade. It was a sobering sight as the Hampshires left their smaller infantry landing craft. Men were dropping while still in shallow water, to be dragged forward by their mates and left on the sand, while their comrades ran on in a purposeful steady jog trot which betrayed no sign of panic. And it sort of shows you they had a job to do. They needed to focus on that. They helped as best they could, but they had to carry on. It's been a very sombering day today. Watching the commemorations in Normandy and the one yesterday in Portsmouth and Southsea, and very strong connections with the war, as many people, as I had said in my previous video yesterday, and I have family who were part of the Allied Expeditionary Force into France in '44. And 50th Division itself would take part in many battles after the Normandy campaign, but would suffer huge casualties. The 1st Battalion, the Hampshire Regiment themselves, would have to be withdrawn from the field towards nearing the end of the Normandy campaign due to just exhaustion of men due to very high casualties. The attrition rate in Normandy was huge, much larger than that of the First World War even. So thank you for this. This is just only the starting parts of the video. I will now hand over to the next part of the video, which will be the mannequin itself. Thank you. Hi again. And now in this part of the video I'll be showing the mannequin I've set up here, with a bit more of the corrections put in place from, say, the yesterday's video. Even though yesterday's video was my interpretation of an officer with that unit in sort of the early parts of the Normandy campaign, going on towards, especially with later in Western Europe. But this is more of an assault setup I've got here. I wanted to sort of do this yesterday. I just I didn't have all the things set up, and I was very rushed for time yesterday, so I had to do what I could. As you can see, same battle dress set up as before. This one is of a private of one of the commando units hitting the beaches either in gold or sword. Meant possibly for full commando who hits sword, but it's sort of a general thing, this one. So, going from top to bottom as I did yesterday, Commando Beret in green as usual, with the Hampshire cap badge on it. With being Army Commando, troops would keep their the cap badge of their parent unit, which they would come from. Going down, as like yesterday, with the scrim scarf, with the netting scarf around the neck. You can use later for concealment, or in this case, just put it around the neck. As yesterday, I have the Bergen on. As I said again, nothing in at the moment. Generally because of weight with the actual stand of the mannequin, which I will have to replace, courtesy of the company. Going down, the main item that the mannequin has on at the moment is the battle jerkin. You may be familiar with the smaller versions, sort of the assault vest, which is basically just consists of the main vest part itself, well, sort of a smaller vest part itself, which ended about here, with just the bayonet loop on the side, and then the two Bren magazine pockets on the front. This one actually is the full battle jerkin, which was almost like a trials example, which was issued to some commando units and some other units during the Normandy landings. One of the most famous photos on Sword Beach of beach parties organising and just off the beach and obviously assisting the wounded. One of the gentlemen in close shot is wearing one of these, and there are also a lot of photos of guys wearing these as they're moving inland. The full set one consists of pocket for the pocket for basically like a inbuilt frog for the bayonet, which in this case is a number 4 bayonet on here. There's another large pocket, which in this case I put the mess tin, which would carry, say, rations, etc. These can be stored elsewhere, but this is probably quite a good pocket for that. Or in other terms, it can be used for carrying the bandoliers, for example. But you also have the large pockets in front as well. On the other side, we have the light respirator, which is slung over this time, and like yesterday when it was hooked onto the belt, so this is slung over the shoulder this time. Just under that is a pouch which has in it at the moment the water bottle. On the front, might not be completely period accurate for the time. I think these ones are post-war. I believe the actual bandolier itself, I can't exactly remember. I do have a wartime one, but that's gone missing in the move I had a few weeks ago. So, carrying 50 rounds of 303 ammunition for the Lee Enfield rifle that this gentleman would carry. The whole joke in itself would have, it has a small pack size inbuilt pack on the back, which is not in use at the moment due to the gentleman using a Bergen, which was way more efficient than, say, using a normal small pack in normal cases without this, or in this case instead of the pack in the back. The pack on the back itself, though, does have two slots. On one side is for the machete, which was sometimes carried by units. I do have one which isn't on here at the moment, which was actually belonged to a member of 3rd Division. And on the other side is the pocket for the entrenching tool handle itself. On the back, if I can spin this around without it collapsing, just about that. I'll lift these up. If you just see on the bottom here, we have the pocket for the entrenching tool head itself. So that will go in there, and then we'll see, if you can just see on the side, if I just twist it around here, you can see the actual pocket for the entrenching tool handle itself. Put that back there. All the insignia in that is still the same. Obviously, this one represents the privates of that unit. The assault itself, obviously, as we know from history now, went very, very successfully, but casualties were heavy on both sides. Everyone, yes, remembers the heavy casualties of that on Omaha, also known sometimes as Bloody Omaha, but let's not forget there were hundreds of thousands of more troops and many more nations that took part. It wasn't just the United States, or even it wasn't just Britain and Canada. There were many other nations, as I said yesterday, that took part and sacrificed everything for what we have today. I really implore any of you to, as I said yesterday, to at least do something, even if it's taking a small time out of your day, to remember these guys and these men and women who have given everything for the freedom we have today. Thank you again. If any other questions you have for me or about the setup I have today, please feel free to ask me. But that'll do for today. Please like, comment and subscribe, and be very, very helpful. Any comments would be very, very thankful and helpful indeed, to help further me in my knowledge and also for projecting that too. Thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed.
This is London. London calling in the home, overseas and European services of the BBC and through United Nations Radio Mediterranean. And this is John Snagg speaking. Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, have just issued communique number 1, and in a few seconds I will read it to you. Under the command of General Eisenhower, Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France. I'll repeat that communique. Communique number 1. Under the command of General Eisenhower, Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France.